tonight's card, we're going to be using the Beautiful Trees dies and the Beauty of Friendship stamp set. We're not using a lot out of here. It's mostly the dies doing the work and the blending brushes. You'll notice my finger has been injured. It was slammed in a car door accidentally last night, and I've got a pretty good gouge in there, but we've got a bandage on it, so we're good to go. We'll begin with a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, so just a 1/4 of an inch less than a standard card base. We'll take our Bumblebee ink, and there are a number of yellows that will work for this. Mango Melody would work probably pretty well. It would be a little bit brighter. Pale Papaya would be a little bit lighter, but also nice. Crushed Curry. So just pick a yellow that you like and take your first little splotch off so you're not getting something that's a big blob when you start, and then just very lightly start and run in circular motions. I'm going to have a black strip across the bottom here so I don't have to pay attention too much to that. It's amazing how different sunsets and sunrises can look depending on, of course, the weather and the weather forecast. But I like this color combination every bit as much as the oranges and reds. All right, I think that's pretty good. I'm next going to move to Bermuda Bay, and when I began this card initially, I started with Coastal Cabana, and I just found that it wasn't quite vibrant enough for me. If you'd like it a little lighter, Coastal Cabana also works. Got a piece of hair on there. But you can get a pretty light tone just by using a very light touch. And as you keep rubbing, and if you apply a deeper touch, you get a deeper color. And I'm running into the Bumblebee a little bit. I don't want a sharp line at all. I want it to just blend in nicely. I'm going to go a little higher than maybe I would anticipate having to go because I will blend in my Misty Moonlight the same way. That's not bad, but I think I really like, with silhouettes, I really like bolder colors. So I'm going to keep adding some. And I can come back a little bit later and add some more if I don't think this is quite enough. I think this is getting pretty good. I got a lot of this ink off here already, and I'm going to something else that's not too far off in tone. Misty Moonlight, so I don't have to use a clean brush. You could also use Night of Navy here if you want a darker sky. I really wanted it still to be kind of light out. If you have not purchased blending brushes yet, what are you waiting for? These things are fantastic. It's so much fun. You know, over the years, we've had various kinds of brayers. We've had rubber brayers, acrylic brayers, sponge brayers. I didn't mind the rubber brayers too much, but they did have a fault that if you left them sitting rubber down, they'd get a flat spot, and then it wouldn't be necessarily a nice, clean brayered look. It took a little bit more work. And they took a little bit more work in general anyway. We've used sponges, but you get kind of a blotchy look with that, and sponge daubers the same way. So these blending brushes are my favorite. All right, that's not bad, but I think I still want a little bit darker. You could add that fourth color of, look at what I did over here. I have to make sure my tree goes over there. Be careful. Pay attention where your fingers are going in the ink pads. All right. There we go. So that's a nice sunsetty look, I think. The other thing I could do is I could cut this down a little bit further, but I think I can make this work. We'll set this aside to dry because you put quite a bit of ink on there. It is actually wet. You can feel the dampness in it. So now we're going to work on the tree part of this. I'm going to take my adhesive sheets, and I have a piece of scrap black cardstock ready to go, and I know it is 3 3/8 inches wide. So I'm cutting my adhesive sheet to be that as well. I'll peel off the backing. It's stuck to me. I'll take this card and lay it down on here. It's okay if it's not laid down perfectly. You can trim it up. And the reason why you do want to trim it is because when you're running it through your machine, if you have adhesive showing, it's going to get a little sticky on your machine. Just trim that little piece off. Trim this little piece off. I really probably should have started with a piece that was a little bit smaller, because it's not, I'm probably not going to cut all the way to the edge, and it doesn't matter if every single piece of this is adhesive backed. As long as the majority of it is, it'll be fine. We're going to take our mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and you'll need your plates. So you'll need the number 1 plate. And we'll need our tree. I'm going to put this on an angle slightly. It's better for my machine. Oops, I forgot. I need a number 2 plate first. And then I need my paper. And another number 2 plate. So we'll run that through. I don't have my plates lined up. And we'll send that right through. Sorry if this is shaking the table a little bit. I'm using my left hand too, which is a little bit harder for me. And so we have this. I'll just pop it right out. I'll show you how to get those pieces out of there in just a minute. But honestly, when it's adhesive backed, you don't have to worry about poking those things out quite as much right now. But we have some more die cutting to do because we need to do the tree base. Take my sheet again. Same sandwich. Let's put that tree on there. Another number 2 plate. And again, I'm putting it through, rolling with my left hand, which makes it awkward for me. And here's our tree. And just work it out a little bit. Now here's the trick I was going to show you. When it has adhesive backing on it, you really can just, and I showed you this the last time I made one of these trees, peel it off and just leave the rest of that there. Now, if you recall from the last time I did one of these, this piece extends over here. So I don't want to put this right up against the edge, because then I'm going to have a problem with my card not being wide enough. Let's just try this right here. So my ink blotch is still showing, but that's all right. I'm going to use the same trick to take off the adhesive here. And some of the pieces came off. Now I do need to poke some of these out, but these larger ones, I'm actually going to, I'll just set those aside for a second. These larger ones will come in handy in just a moment. They'll fill in some of the gaps that I think are just too big. I don't like to have too much showing through, because then it makes the tree look like, you know, it's not a healthy tree. All right, so there we go. And I happen to know this little hook goes on the left side. So there we have something that looks like that. Sticks down nicely. My ink is still showing, and I did go off the page just a little bit still here. But I'm going to take one of these pieces from the inside. That one doesn't have the backing on it still. And I'm going to put that right here. There, see, my problem is fixed. I have a couple of other pieces here. I'm going to fill in this gap a little bit. Here we go. I'll take this piece and fill in what I think is a pretty big gap right there. Now, if you wanted more pieces, there's still some more pieces on here that you can pop in as you want. You don't have to. You can also cut another piece. You can take, because this has the back on it, you can cut partial pieces from this and stick it over. I think this looks fine. For the base, I'm just going to start with a piece of cardstock, black cardstock, and I'm going to cut just a nice rolling little hill. And this is longer than my card. I can just decide where I want to put my tree. Probably want to put this down a little bit. There we go. And then we will adhere it. I'm actually going to put my adhesive on the base here, because I know I'm going to go off the page a bit. That looks good. Flip it over, and you can trim off the excess. You know how sometimes when you're measuring, if I had measured a 4-inch wide piece of basic black cardstock, there's the chance that it was just under 4 inches when I cut it, and so a little white would show. So this is how you can avoid that. And I'm okay with this piece of leaf going over there. We need a sentiment here. I'm going to take obviously you could use any set you wanted, but I'm going to stick with a Beauty of Friendship here. And let's use Thinking of You. This would make a really nice sympathy card too, if you wanted to use a sympathy greeting. Make a great retirement card. Or, you know, somebody just likes sunsets or sunrises. Makes a nice card for that. I'm stamping in Memento black ink. So there's the Thinking of You. Here's my card base. This one happens to be a hot dog fold, which simply means I did it the long way. It is 4 1/4 inches by 11, scored at the 5 1/2. You could certainly pop this up on dimensionals if you wanted to, but I'm okay with it like this. Oh, you know what I didn't do? What I didn't do before I actually mounted the tree, and I should have, is done my starry sky. So I'm going to show you how I did that, and I'm going to show you actually how you can, if you make the same mistake I did and don't do it until later, how you can fix that. I'm going to just put this something over to protect this. I don't want it on my tree. I don't want it to affect that cardstock look. I don't need it anywhere else really. I just need it in the blue piece. And I'm going to get a water painter out. I'm going to make sure there's plenty of water flowing through. So I squeeze until almost I can see a drop actually kind of forming. And then I'm going to flick it. And it will be hard for you to see here. Let me see if I can get some bigger drops. There's a bigger drop. But what this will do is it kind of pushes the ink out a little bit, and it will become a little more white, like a star. You can also take Wink of Stella, which if you don't have Wink of Stella, I highly recommend that as well. Same thing, you want to make sure there's plenty of Wink of Stella flowing through, and you'll flick it onto your sky. And so there's just some twinkling stars floating about in there. It hasn't dried completely yet, and I don't know if this picks up the shimmer, but there's a lot of shimmery little stars in here. So they're just starting to peek out during the night. Another thing I did on my original card was I added, can you see these two little birds? And I didn't put them in basic black for two reasons. I didn't have the marker, and I didn't actually have a basic a black pen handy. But also I didn't want them to be close up. I wanted them to be further in the background, and so further away, which will mean that they're going to be lighter, and they're blending into that sunset anyway. Sunset, sunrise. So I'm just making those little V's, those birds flying. And there we go. And that is our card. Now what to do for the inside? Let me clean this up and be right back for that. For the inside, I didn't really have an idea ahead of time what I wanted to do. So, and I still really don't. Let's just try mocking it up similar to how we did it before. I'm not going to have any other layers on the inside though, so I need to make sure my bottom is the bumblebee that the strength that I want, and I do pay attention to the bottom here. I think I'm going to try a silhouette of some bushes down here at the bottom. So I'm not going to go all the way up with my ink. It's certainly an option if you wanted to mimic what you had done before. Because I used my Misty Moonlight last, I'm going to clean it on my microfiber cloth. And I don't have to get 100% of it off, because this is a fairly bright color. And the inside doesn't have to be as bright as the outside. There we go. Cleaning off to the side again. And we'll bring our Misty Moonlight back out. Once I've got a good layer on there, I often like to go back and forth. It does create a little bit more of a stripy look. That's good enough. Now in this, oh, I got lots of ink on my fingers. Now in this set, there are these two stamps. They're meant to be two-step stamping. It doesn't really need, I don't think I'm gonna have to use both of them because I am gonna stamp in black for a silhouette look. So I'm gonna use this. They could be the top of this tree, but they can also be shrubs. So let's go ahead and take out a shrub. That's way bigger than I need. Oh, I can take this one off and use a smaller. You really want to use the smaller clear block if you can manage it. I didn't want to get any extra blocks out, and I didn't think this one would fit at first, but it does. There we've got that shrub inked up. So we're just kind of creating a hedge here. And if you keep stamping over it in different places, you get darker depths. So it's like treetops or shrubs, either one. Now I'm looking at this and thinking, I don't know if I like the white up there. That's where I'd probably want to put another sentiment. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing with this card yet. So I think I am going to leave it white up there. But you certainly could take your brush and just blend up there as well, again, for another look. I'm going to leave it white. That will allow me the option to stamp in lots of different colors for my sentiment, depending on the need that I have for it. And this piece was just a piece that I had. It was, I think it's 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So it leaves a bigger border. But that is our card. I will see you next Friday for another Friday Night Live.